Okay, all right. Well, as I said, hello everyone and welcome to our engineering webinar series. My name is Carrie Berglund and I'm a customer consultant for the Elsevier engineering team for the US government. It's my pleasure today to welcome my colleague and fellow customer consultant, Mark Petroshko, and a very special guest, Kiyomi Takemoto, who is a model-based systems engineer in the aerospace industry at Northrop Grumman. Kiyomi has been a systems engineer in affordability on the F-35 program before moving into her current role as a model-based systems engineer. The architecture, development, and modeling on joint all-domain command and control for system analysis and simulation. Kiyomi is also very involved in the Society of Women Engineers, the Los Angeles section, as their Collegiate Outreach Chair and serves as an employee resource group leader at Northrop Grumman. She enjoys organizing and taking part in various STEM outreach events and mentoring the next generation of STEM leaders. We at Elsevier collectively thank her so much in advance for joining us today for a very candid conversation around a day in her life. So before we get started, a little bit of quick housekeeping. We welcome your questions and your comments, but please put them in the question and answer queue, which we will then answer at the end of the session as time allows. And without further ado, take it away, Mark and Kiyomi.
Thanks, Carrie. Hi, Kiyomi. Welcome. I want to thank you. We're very excited and grateful to you for sharing your story with us today. And I'd like to start from the beginning. So not like when you were born or what were your first words, but I'd like you to talk about when you were introduced to STEM. If you could start off from that portion of your life, please.
Would have wanted to start with that first word. It probably would have been STEM or something like that. Just kidding. Probably not. But yeah, so I think I really grew up curious. I feel like most kids, they kind of go through a kind of why phase. They're constantly asking why or how things work, and then you kind of grow out of it. I feel like I didn't grow out of it for a very long time. Sometimes I still feel like, I'm asking those why questions sometimes. And I think, I'm very grateful that my parents really supported that and, dealt with probably how maybe annoying sometimes it might have been question after question. But I think that, by asking those why questions all the time, it really helped me kind of gravitate towards some of my STEM courses, especially in high school when you kind of start to get to pick, what classes you actually want to take, even though you still have to take the general requirement classes. And so I think that by gravitating towards those, I kind of thought, they make logical sense to me. It's like, either way, we might all be solving like a problem a different way, but we kind of always arrive to a similar conclusion. And so I kind of enjoyed that instead of having to write like long essays trying to persuade somebody to agree with me sometimes. I thought that, sometimes that didn't make as much sense as kind of calculating the right number in like some of those physics and math classes. And so
you liked absolute answers to meet your curiosity.
Yep.
So you kind of develop this thought process through high school, and then you start to prepare for college. How do you create that college environment?
Yeah, so I think I was really lucky to kind of grow up very involved. So from a young age, I was really involved in like the Japanese American community, kind of close to where I live out in West Covina. And I think that through that, by being so involved early on, it kind of made me be like, okay, well, that's kind of the normal. So once I got to college, UC Irvine, they have so many clubs on campus. I think, at the time when I was there, it was like over 400 clubs. And I think that that's
Wow.
probably grown. Yeah,
Wow.
definitely since then. There's always, one to fit almost everyone's interest there. And I know that there's a lot of students on campus, but I think that, I guess growing up in such like, I guess, being so involved, that really helped me understand kind of the value of community. And so I kind of started to establish that by really being involved, I guess, in I kind of gravitated more towards the engineering clubs just because I felt like people were running on the same schedule as I was. It was like, especially during like your freshman year, you have to kind of knock out those math, physics, chemistry classes. And those are like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then you have quizzes Tuesday, Thursday. And so it was difficult when, some of the other clubs kind of outside of engineering, it's like, all right, let's go on a social Wednesday night right before a quiz. And it's like, oh, okay, that's kind of difficult. So I think that kind of by finding my group, I really started gravitating towards 3 different ones that really helped me, I think, through college. And I'd love to kind of plug those in case anyone out there is kind of a part of these or is looking to get involved. So I was a chemical engineering major. So being a part of the American Institute of Chemical Engineers, it's like a chemical engineering professional society. And by being a part of that, I think that really helped me kind of gravitate and grow a lot closer to some of my classmates.
Right.
I think that kind of being a part of, like, I guess, chemical engineering compared to some other majors kind of got to work on class projects really early on during their first and second year, and that wasn't really the case for chemical engineering. And so I think that through AICHE, we were able to really grow a lot closer that way, so that we were kind of set up for success when we had our senior design project or we're taking early later classes that kind of had those group projects.
Yeah, we partner with them, and we know what a great society they are, and great partners for us. Sorry to interrupt.
Oh, no worries. Yeah, AICHE is great. The other 2 that I was involved in the Society of Women Engineers. So I think SWE is very dear and close to my heart just because, its mission is to really help empower women, and it's not only for women, it's open to allies, but I think that it's really great to kind of, I guess, have that support group when you do feel like you're kind of in the minority because you are a woman in STEM. And then the last one that I think really helped me figure out what I wanted to do for my first job out of college was the Engineers for a Sustainable World. And I guess I'm not sure if everyone's kind of familiar with them, but their kind of purpose was to kind of get young engineers hands-on practice with engineering projects. And hopefully the mission of that project was kind of surrounding the idea of some way to be sustainable. And through, I guess, being a part of that, by being like a project lead on that project, I kind of learned a little bit kind of what systems engineering and project engineering is, which is actually kind of what I started doing for my first job at Northrop. So, yeah.
Well, it's really interesting the way, you're getting connected and you're getting ready to start your career. So before we get to your career, I was just curious about your job search. What was that like? Did you get the first job you applied for out of college?
Definitely not. Yeah. So I think that there was a lot of applications that I probably sent out, and I don't know how many it was, but I think that what was really important, I guess, for when I started kind of looking for jobs was I remember my junior year, there was an event that we had someone come in from a company and kind of talk about the difference between your major's name and a job title's name. And I, for one, did not know what the difference was. I was like, okay, I'm a chemical engineer. I'm going to look for chemical engineering. Or, I was kind of through ESW, I kind of started to learn about what systems engineering was, but I didn't know that that was the title at the time. And so it was really through kind of applying and by doing interviews as well, where I kind of started learning, okay, that's what systems engineering is kind of about, even though it's still a little bit vague sometimes in some of the interviews. And I think that that's really kind of how, I guess, through learning through interviews is what really kind of helped me steer my career and kind of find out, what companies would be a good fit for what I was looking for at least. And so if anyone's out there, interviewing, just know that you're also interviewing them as well. They're not the only person kind of interviewing you.
That's great advice to give. So you land a job at Northrop Grumman, and are there any people or events that help give your career direction or some advice? through all that?
Yeah, definitely. So I guess growing up, I didn't really feel like I had STEM influencers, but once I got to Northrop is such like a great like people company. Like literally, if you ask like a bunch of Northrop people what you like about Northrop, they'll probably say it's the people that keep them here. Um, and I think that's probably due to some of the ERGs, the employee resource groups. But either way, I think that once I joined Northrop, I kind of started learning that, a lot of people were like, okay, I have a mentor. And I'm like, all right, so where are you guys all getting these mentors, right? Like mentoring was kind of a new thing for me. And I know that, we kind of tried to start it, I guess, in college in some of my clubs when I was kind of on the way out. So it was more like being the mentor instead of the mentee. And I think that, through like mentors at Northrop Grumman, it was really great because I think that it's really helped me a lot through my career. And I think that, one thing that I misunderstood for I think the longest time was mentorships are so associated with kind of programs. So it already has like a set timeline. It's like you're going to be my mentor for half a year or a year. And I think that it took me a while to understand that that's not the case. So mentorships can be as short or as long as they kind of need to be, really. And I think that some of the best mentors that I've had, they've kind of understood, when they've kind of given me as much information as they could on like whatever I'm asking about, and they'll actually say, okay, this is how much I can help you on this, but I know somebody else who might be more knowledgeable, and then they'll kind of refer you to somebody else. So I think that that's kind of the best thing that I've learned, is that, I guess whenever you have some time to like talk to people about, if they have a question or something, just look at that as a possible mentorship opportunity where, it might just be like half hour or an hour conversation, but you might be helping them, steer their career some way or somehow. And I think that that's really great.
Yeah, mentors are so wonderful, and they could be instrumental, and to be working at a company where that's offered and you take advantage of it. Um, was there any specific mentor that was instrumental that may have given you some career direction or direction, something specific?
Yeah, actually, I guess how I got my current role is through a mentor. So when I was in my last role as a systems engineer, I was kind of, trying to figure out. I was learning a lot about like I guess the aerospace industry as a chemical engineer. I didn't necessarily like think so much about, I guess, what if I work in aerospace, and so it was a lot of learning in terms of just what careers are out there within the aerospace industry. And one mentor in particular who has really helped me, I feel like, through my career. And she kind of started telling me like, okay, so this is like what you're doing is systems engineering, and then what I do is model-based systems engineering. And I was like, okay, that sounds pretty interesting. And so she kind of walked me through what she does, and kind of introduced model-based systems engineering and kind of systems architecture to me. And that really she was so great because she like encouraged me to kind of like go learn more. So I actually took like a certificate course at Caltech to just learn a little bit more about it. And I figured out, I do want to try this. And so I was able to move into my new career because of that.
Well, so let's talk a little bit about your new career that as you bring it up. So you're a model systems based engineer, and you started out as a systems engineer. Is that a natural progression from one to the other?
Yeah, I think not necessarily. I guess so in my first career as just like a general systems engineer, I was doing a lot of like project engineering. And I guess when you think about like the systems engineering, you kind of think about the V model, and it's kind of where it's literally a V where you're going through like the whole project life cycle of something, and you're kind of going from idea conception to kind of down here like implementation, and then finally like post operation and maintenance. And model based systems engineering kind of focuses more on the beginning portion, kind of where the systems architecture might be going on, where you're looking at like, I guess, kind of idea conception almost, and kind of building requirements like about around there, or trying to figure out what it is that the customers want. And so I think that, systems engineering, you can really go anywhere. You can go kind of like deep into systems engineering and do like specifically like testing engineering, and you can still be labeled like a systems engineer. But I kind of liked the idea of kind of being at the beginning, where I feel like almost creativity meets engineering almost. And I thought that that was really cool, because it's like you get to literally like be creative in an engineering role, which I know sometimes isn't the case. So
Yeah, and I don't know many people outside of engineering would look at the creative side of it. Is getting kind of a little bit into the weeds. I was just curious, as you're kind of talking about it from a broad view, is there like a common skill that you utilize in your day?
yeah, I think probably it would probably be communication. I think that, I guess the whole point of having a model to refer to is really to help communicate, information basically. Models kind of make information like easily accessible and kind of in a centralized area, rather than sending all these documents back and forth. And then it's like, where were we referring to like one specific point? And so models really help with that. And so I think that definitely communication is kind of utilized a lot. You're communicating upwards and outwards with customers or developers. And actually a lot of, I guess my job is partly research, and so also talking to like subject matter experts, and yeah, definitely communication.
Well, it's great that you've got that research component. It just makes me curious, are there any specific research tools that you use to help you?
Yeah, so in terms of research, I guess one that I've really been using lately, in terms of my role as like a model-based systems engineer, is Novel. And Novel, there's so many resources on Novel, and also Engineering Village, but I utilize Novel a lot because there's a lot of great books on there that I kind of reference. And I think that it's kind of an easy way to both read, share, you can share the link to it, which is great. And you can also take notes in it. So I think that that's really helpful for me. And it's really a great like engineering technical reference that has kind of trusted information that can be utilized and I can use on my day-to-day.
That's wonderful to hear. Now, can you also share with us your experience as a double minority in STEM? I just want to hear what your experience is like.
Yeah, definitely. So I guess if anyone doesn't know maybe what double minority kind of means, I guess in STEM, there's not too many females, first of all, which I think is a really big topic. But I think another topic that people sometimes don't think about is how, I guess, being a person of color kind of mixes into there. So I identify as an Asian American, and so I kind of wanted to share maybe a statistic, because March was Women's History Month. And so one that really stuck with me was that in women in engineering, 1 in 4 will drop their engineering kind of I guess career path within the first 5 years of working. And me being almost halfway there, that's kind of a scary thought. And I know that that's kind of a worldwide statistic, but yeah, I think that that's definitely really scary. And it's really because of, having challenges during things like performance reviews, or having like people have implicit bias. And, we're not trying to have it. It's just, sometimes we do. And I think that it's often multiplied for, these challenges are often multiplied for women of color. And so I think internally, I've had kind of some internal struggle, trying to kind of face these challenges of, it's kind of against my culture to maybe speak up against somebody who's older than me, or, just speak up in general, because part of my culture is to kind of like, quietly endure, whatever you might be working on, and you just like work hard and persevere and it'll be fine. And so I think that, I guess, because of what's recently happened, like in the Asian Pacific Islander, Desi American community, I think that that's really helped me challenge myself in terms of kind of understanding how important it is to leverage my voice and be vocal, and kind of put myself out there sometimes. And I think that, just to kind of leave everyone with something, I think that, it's really important to know that, we're making great progress in terms of like women in STEM and women of color in STEM, but I think that there is still a lot of work to be done, in terms of encouraging or mentoring, the next generation of STEM leaders, and especially for those who are female, who are kind of from those underrepresented communities.
Thank you. That was, yeah, that you have such a unique perspective on that, and I think you enlightening on us that on that specific topic was not only informational but also from directional. I think so. So thank you for that. I want to thank you for just generously sharing with us your story today, your very unique story, and really appreciative in the multi layers that you've shared with us in such a short period of time. Carrie, I want to go back to you and see if there are any questions, and also remind people if they have questions for Kiyomi to please put them in the Q&A. And Carrie, if there are questions, please.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm just listening so intently to everything you have to say, Kiyomi, and yeah, really, really inspiring stuff. So there is a question. It is, let's see, I'm going to make sure I say this correctly. Do we think that we could get the younger generation interested in STEM? What do you think we could do? Are there programs that you remember attending, or were you just always interested? I mean, was there something that inspired you? I guess I'm thinking in my own son's world, he is very involved in the Scouts, which actually have a pretty strong STEM program. What did it for you? What lit your spark?
Yeah, so I guess I wasn't really too, there wasn't necessarily like very specific programs, I think, but I think that just having kind of encouraging parents, going to the science museum every so often was pretty helpful for me. And I think that, by taking on, a role at Northrop, by being kind of involved in employee resource groups, that has really helped me kind of see like what else is really being done out there. I think there's really a big push, because there's such like a great community, especially like out in South Bay where I work at. And so I guess since starting at Northrop and seeing that there's all these great ways to get involved, what I've been able to do is, I guess most recently I presented like I did like a workshop about like food science, about kind of incorporating some physics and chemistry in there. And I thought that was a pretty cool way to get, the younger generation kind of interested in making glue out of milk. If anyone wants to try that out someday. But yeah, like there's days that I didn't know about when I was growing up, but there's like Introduce a Girl to Engineering Day, there's Engineering Week, and I know like you mentioned, Boy Scouts, I know that there's definitely also some equal representation in STEM for some of the Girl Scout groups that we've worked worked with in the past with like their STEM expos and stuff. So
Absolutely.
definitely great progress.
So there is another question. First, I'm just going to say I have always struggled saying AICHE, and you called it ASCII, which I love. AICHE, no, you called it AICHE, which I love, and I'm totally going to do now. But there was a question around, do these societies what would you place as far as a value on these societies as both a student and as a professional? Do you feel that it led to opportunity and other parts?
Yeah, I think that definitely being involved is really important just because of you don't know how wide that network can go. To be honest, in my first interview for being a systems engineer here, actually somebody was like, it's at the very bottom of your resume, but I want to know about SWE. And I was like, okay. And then I talked about it, and somebody on the call was like, I was a part of SWE. And then someone else was like, I was a part of ESW. And so it's like, you never like just because you don't know them, they might really kind of know that they'll know like the general mission of like whatever organization you're in. And I think that that is really great because it's like you didn't even know them in the first place, but you already have something to connect over. And I know that, these societies are really great at kind of helping push, some opportunities forward, whether that be like just STEM outreach or, job opportunities. Sometimes I think that that's really helped, especially for me, like pushing those opportunities on some of the schools in Los Angeles as the Collegiate Outreach Chair. So
Interesting, interesting. So there is another question. We're not lacking in questions. It's a standards question, actually. One of our attendees is curious if you utilize standards in your work, and if yes, from what organizations? Examples: ASTM, SAE, IEEE.
yeah, so I guess being like a model-based systems engineer, or just I guess systems engineering in general, there is like the systems engineering handbook that I think kind of gets referenced often, or I know that internally at least we have a lot of references that we're trying to make for each other about just how to utilize Cameo, which is like our modeling tool that we utilize for my specific projects that I work with. But I think that that's kind of my exposure, but I know that definitely, especially for like people in like the mechanical area, when I'm working with mechanical design engineers on my last job as a project engineer, they are constantly, you know, looking at all those standards that they have.
Right, right. Oh, no, well, thank you so much for that. So we have 3 minutes left. Oh, maybe, yeah, approximately 3 minutes left. I just want to thank you so much. And I'm sure, Mark, thank both you and Mark for putting together this conversation. It was really so very interesting on so many different levels. And you're leaving me wanting more. We do have a poll. We'd like you to answer it, please, folks that are attending. Did you find this session valuable? Please let us know. And would you attend a similar style webinar? And those of you out there in participation land, perhaps you want to be like Kiyomi. So reach out to your customer consultant and do let us know. So I'm going to give the poll here about 10 more seconds. It's looks like we're getting a lot of good results. Yeah, there's really no one that didn't find this very valuable. So awesome. I'm going to end the poll there. Let's see. We'll go ahead and take a quick look at what we have coming up next. If you enjoyed this session, our next one is April 22nd, very different topic, not to go too off the status here, but history of bourbon production. It is no secret that bourbon can be produced in the primitive and high tech. Is it a surprise that the efficiency of a smooth running production has captured the imagination of the engineer? Join us for a conversation of building a better libation the way an engineer might, and a discussion of notable examples. So do indeed join us for that. That is going to be April 22nd, same time, same channel. If you don't have an invitation to this, do reach out to your customer consultant. If you do not know who that is, feel free to reach out to myself or Mark, and we will be happy to provide that to you. That being said, so you've missed some of our engineering customer consultant webinars. We have a newly launched YouTube channel. Used to be sort of a thing where we would send you a sheet with a password and you'd be able to get in and see the see the webinar from there. But now it is unleashed on the YouTube world, and indeed quite a catalog of some really great past sessions that we've had. And they're very consumable. So do take a moment to take a look there. If you do need something that is perhaps not just YouTube, you have issues in being able to utilize that at your workplace, do again, reach out to your customer consultant or your or the moderator, that is myself on this one, and I will be happy to provide access to the past webinars. Again, I just want to thank you so much, Mark and Kiyomi, and we're looking forward to seeing everyone again on the 21st. And if there are any subjects, goes without saying, any subjects others might be interested in us pursuing, we will be setting up for the summer session here in the short beyond the bourbon production webinar. So do reach out. Thanks again. Everyone have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Kiyomi. Thank you so much.
Thank you.